Alrighty, guys. Thank you all for bearing with me for a second. I had to get some photos downloaded and taken care of so we could show them off today. We've got a great show. I was getting some of my facts straight because I had a few things mixed up, but even with the mess up, it's quite interesting because we're going to get two facets, actually multifaceted here. Our guest was in the infantry in Vietnam. He's got a really interesting story about him ending up on a very notorious SOG site, running security and doing some other stuff that'll be very interesting. And he's got some photos to share with us up on top of this particular hill. And after his stint in Vietnam, he came back stateside and served with the 5th and 7th Special Forces Group and was a Gabriel team member. As you can tell, he was with the SADM. He was testing parachutes and other stuff like that. I'll butcher what exactly he was doing. We'll get into that. But we've got a great show today. So let's welcome Mr. Ron, and you guys get some questions in as we start going along, and we'll hit them. And we usually like to start, Mr. Ron, by kind of asking a little bit, especially with the Vietnam veterans and guys of this sounds bad, your age, shall we say. Did you have any family members, father, uncles, or anything that served in the military? Did you have family history of the military?
Yes, my father was a World War II veteran, but my mother divorced him when I was 3 or 4, and he never really kept in touch, so I never got to discuss any of that with him. But I do have a few photos of him. He was in the Africa area. I have a few pictures of him in uniform and in fatigues and stuff like that. But other than that, nothing else.
Wow. That's interesting. The African Pam. I was just reading something. One of my buddies helped out with the new SAS series that's on, and I was reading about them running through the desert like wild men. Did you also mention that did your mom drive trucks in WW2?
Well, the Army hired civilian women to take a lot of the tasks that, of course, the men were overseas fighting, and truck driving was one of the tasks, and not just small trucks, but
No.
big ass trucks. And I have pictures of my grandmother who was a civilian but wore a uniform and was under the command of soldiers, officers, driving trucks. And my mother helped out too, even though she was a teenager. And this was up in Michigan, in the Dearborn area, where they had a military installation. I don't remember the name of it, but she drove trucks, and my mother also for the Army.
Wow, that is that's just really cool. With excuse me, with all the jobs the men are doing, I can only imagine all of the ladies being quite eager, because it sounds like from all the things, they were eager to throw in and help as much as they could, and I can only imagine how rewarding that was for your grandmother and mother and all of them to get to drive trucks and really contribute to the cause and help out.
Sure.
Like that. That's really, really cool.
Are you familiar with the term Rosie the Riveter?
I am. Yes, sir.
Well, there's a classic example of the part that women did to support the war effort. It's amazing.
Absolutely. One of the, I would say easily, not even in considering it warfare, but I would consider that the Rosie the Riveter poster to be probably one of the most famous posters of all time. Now it's.
And by the way, separately, I do have those pictures of my grandmother, and since you're interested, offline, I'll send you that. You can see for yourself. It's pretty cool because these are big trucks, not little ones.
I can imagine. My grandfather drove coal trucks in Virginia, and my dad always loved riding with him. And he's I've got some of his photo albums, and yeah, I can imagine those were some huge trucks, especially for those gals to first jump in and start getting control of. Did were you a big sports guy? Did you have anything on your mind military wise early on, or were you just going like a normal kid and playing sports and having fun? And
No, being short, I didn't really engage in any intramural sports activities. But was I sports active on my own? Sandlot, football,
oh, yeah.
stuff like that. I did a lot of that. And as far as the military, kids playing cowboys and Indians. For some reason, I was very, very enamored with playing soldier. And with my friends in the neighborhood growing up in Miami, we would constantly divide into teams and try to be enemy and friendly and try to sneak up on each other, or we'd go run and hide and seek rather than just normal kids hide and seek. It would be military hide and seek to try to shoot the other guy. So I was always very interested in that, always interested in firearms. Even though my raised by a single mom, I wasn't really didn't have firearms or anything like that. But it was always in my desire. I can't explain why, really. Maybe not having a father. I just wanted to do guy things, and the military just enamored me. And when I guess seeing the Green Berets with John Wayne, to me that was like the greatest thing I'd ever seen in my life. And I said I wanted to be a Green Beret. I wanted to be Special Forces. So that was my goal. And because I knew that to be Special Forces, you needed to be airborne qualified, I knew I was going to volunteer for airborne school, but I'd never jumped out of an airplane before, and I didn't want to be scared for my first jump. So I said, you know what? I'll go to a skydiving drop zone and I'll make one parachute jump just to get that initial fear out of my system to see what it's like. And I loved it so much that when I went to airborne school, I had 69 skydiving jumps.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, really. I just loved skydiving so much that I still do it on occasion.
I don't think I know. Actually, I can say it with a certain, and I can't say that many times on stuff we've had guests say or have done because you guys do so much crazy stuff. But I can say assuredly, we have never had someone who said, I'm definitely going to jump school and I need to be airborne qualified. But rather than me go through that there the first time, I'm going to go do this myself and just do one. And that turns into 69, maybe 70 jumps before you even get to Fort Benning to do jump school.
I also need to add, not only did I volunteer for that, I volunteered for Vietnam because if I'm in the military, what better way to perform your duty than in combat? And I really wanted to experience combat, and I don't regret, even though I didn't really experience much of it, quite honestly. Vietnam was actually a rewarding, good experience for me. So I have no depredations talking about it or reliving it because nothing really bad happened to me. So there's that.
That's that's absolutely outstanding. And I realize as us doing a interview, I skipped one of the most important questions, literally right off the bat. And we're going to step back here a ways. When were you born and where were you raised? I'm sorry for not asking.
I was born November 3rd, 1946 in the Bronx, New York.
Oh.
And my mother realized that that's not a good place to raise a child. Mm-hmm. So we moved to Miami, Florida when I was about 9 months old. And I lived there until I graduated high school, in Miami Senior High School in, when was that? 1964. And then I went to Florida State University in Tallahassee, Florida, with a degree in criminology. Now, why a degree in criminology? I wanted to make a career in the Army. I wanted to get a degree because I was ROTC, Reserve Officer Training Corps. And you
Wow.
need a degree to go. You need to go to college and get a degree to be get
An
commissioned
officer.
as an officer in the military. So I chose criminology because it's, to me, paramilitary. It was the closest thing I could think of.
Mhm.
Have I ever used it? No, but I don't regret it because it was a very interesting field, and I'm very pro police, law enforcement because of it, because I learned that they're human beings just like us, and I have a great respect for the law enforcement because of it.
Absolutely. And in my talkings, I've spoken to probably uh, at least four on the top of my hand, and about to be five of gentlemen that went to Vietnam, were either special forces, SOG, or what have you, and they did not. They didn't go to college beforehand. Came back and didn't really know what to do. Ended up going into criminology and ended up with the FBI and working. So there, you could have maybe had something in mind later on down the road, thinking, "Hey, this could turn into something if the military didn't work out. I might could join the FBI one day."
Well, that's true, but I had a different take in that because I was a skydiver, military free fall jumper, airborne qualified, and a airborne jump master, and a test jumper. Parachuting was
Your life.
fun. It was my life. So when I got out of the army, I joined Pioneer Parachute Company, traveled all around the world jumping out of airplanes to demonstrate our equipment, to train them in how to use our equipment. So that was my path, and I had the best of all worlds because I got to jump out of airplanes for a living.
That I mean, and we've got some photos of you later on in life testing some of those out. We'll get to, because I'm sure ODA, we've got some gentlemen here that were in the military and have done some jumps. They're already quite interested with what you've mentioned about. You mentioned ROTC, becoming an officer. You go to jump school, and when you finished with jump school, did you attempt before Vietnam of thinking about SF, or did you, since you were an officer, were you kind of forced in the direction of leading a infantry unit, or shall we say not being able to go to SF?
Well, I went to airborne jump school, and then I went to infantry officer basic course, and by volunteering to Vietnam, when I went to the personnel people, I said, I'm volunteering for Vietnam, but I want to be special forces. And that was part of the bargain. So I went to the 7th Special Forces Group as a non-qualified trainee. Then I went to the Special Forces Officers Course at Fort Bragg, SFOC. Then it was a gentleman's course. The NCOs went through a really rigorous, tough training, but it was a gentleman course for officers at the time. It was very great. It was very interesting. We learned a lot of stuff. But nowadays, the training for officers and NCOs is basically all the same. And I do believe that rank is not even a part of it. And it's very rigorous, very tough. And I regret that it wasn't that way for me back then. So I really respect the Special Forces now. Also, Special Forces back then was still controversial in that we were sort of like, not rebels per se, but the regular Army officers didn't really think that we were necessary or offered anything. So being Special Forces was actually considered negative for getting promotions and all that. And we were not an actual branch. Only later in the history of Special Forces did it become a separate branch, and you now have it well recognized, and all of the services, Army, Navy, Air Force, Navy, have special operations. You have SOCOM, Special Operations Command. So it's definitely recognized, and it has proven itself to be a very capable, esteemed fighting force.
Absolutely. That's very interesting that you got experience with seventh group even before Vietnam. That's very interesting, and I don't know if I've spoken to anybody, so I don't know really how to even ask the questions. Asked what exactly when you got attached, what was your job, what was going on for someone attached to a special forces group at this time that was not, shall we say, a tabbed special forces man?
Well, you're still considered part of the gang, if you will. So you
Okay.
undergo training, but you wear a green beret, but instead of a flash, which designates that you're qualified, you have a little bar. So I had a little on my beret, I had a red bar in my rank, and the red bar, 7 Special Forces Group. And then when you go to Special Forces Officers course, then you become qualified. You earn your flash, and then you're considered a Special Forces qualified soldier.
Wow.
Now, I didn't finish. Well, you asked me how I wound up in Vietnam in the infantry. Uh, when I got orders to go to Vietnam, uh, maybe my ignorance, I didn't even think about assignments or anything like that. I went to Vietnam and went to the replacement depot and was there for a few days, not even, I'm in a stranger in a strange land, not knowing what to expect. So it's all new experience to me. And when assignments came up, it showed that I was going to be assigned to the 1st and the 5th Mechanized Infantry Brigade at Quang Tri. And there was a map of Vietnam, South Vietnam, on the wall, and it showed where the different units were. So I look at the map and I start down at the bottom and I look up and I look up and I look up, and right at the top on the demilitarized zone, adjacent to North Vietnam, is Quang Tri. And I'm thinking, oh, that's interesting, because I had just read or heard on the local military news that there was a bunker in Quang Tri at the army base that had been hit by a 122 millimeter rocket, and a large number of soldiers in the bunker were killed. And I'm thinking, oh, that's great. I'm going up to where that just happened. So before I went, I tried to call Special Forces headquarters in the Trang on a military phone, if you will. Tried to get through to see if I could get diverted to a Special Forces job, and was unable to get through. So that didn't work out. So I went to an infantry unit in Vietnam, and served there and did the best I could under those circumstances. But it was quite different to be in an infantry battalion with draftees, God love them, than it would have been to be in a special forces unit with highly qualified
Profession.
personnel
Yeah.
and super qualified NCOs to really teach me what to do and know what in the hell they're doing. But I don't regret my experiences whatsoever. It was still great. And when I left Vietnam, I went. I was assigned to the 5th Special Forces Group, and when I met the battalion commander and I said, I'm a skydiver. I'd like to go to Halo school, and he needed a Halo qualified officer for one of his Halo ODAs. And I was lucky, in the right place at the right time. And I immediately went to Halo school. Then I went to Halo Jumpmaster school. So that was probably one of the proudest, most enjoyable achievements of my life.
That is That's wild. I mean, for you to get back like that, and you've got so many great photos. We're gonna have to take. I can't even keep up. You'll just have to. We'll have to talk about them because they're so great. But I mean, for you to get back and then there you are. I mean, people. I had heard people waiting. Years or months and months to be able to get even to Halo school, or if they wanted to get assigned to first group in Okinawa after SOG to the Halo team, it was usually filled out by guys from from the projects or whatever. And there you get the opportunity to not only take over a team, but go through Halo. Did you say Halo Jump Master as well?
Oh yeah.
Jeez Louise. I mean, that's like people's dream card right there handed to you.
Now, if I may, you might find this interesting because you talked about how hard it is to get into Halo school. I was with a Halo qualified detachment, but I had people on my team that were not yet Halo qualified because of the difficulty. What made it very frustrating is the rumor was, probably true, that a lot of the people getting Halo qualified and taking up the few slots that were available were orderly room people that wanted to get their badge punched and wanted to do fun stuff. So that was the rumor, which I believe there's some truth to that. And what made it even worse, when I was there, it could very well be the same today. Each detachment had a contingency plan that if in fact the balloon went up, remember this is still during the Cold War, if you will, we were given an assignment that the team would go behind enemy lines in a certain country. And our mission, as you probably know, special forces, people say, what's the difference between special forces and Rangers? Well, special forces was more set up to go behind enemy lines and link up with friendly forces that are trying to overthrow the government and train them to overthrow the government, a bad government, of course, communist government, if you will. And my team was given Yugoslavia as our place to, if the balloon went up, to go jump in or however, to go into Yugoslavia and organize indigenous forces that want to fight the regime and overthrow it. What was frustrating, though, is we had some wonderful black NCOs on the team, and I kept asking how, because if you go behind enemy lines in any country, unfriendly country, and you're compromised, you have to E&E, escape and evade out. And I kept wondering, how are we going to E&E? How are my black NCOs going to E&E out of Yugoslavia, because they're going to obviously stand out? And that was one of my little, if you will, disappointments, in that the mission, if we had to do it, would be very difficult to pull off because of that reality.
Wow. And did wow, I need to pull up some of your folks are watching. I believe your daughter is.
Yeah, it's my daughter. My favorite daughter, I might add.
Mr. Mike Cox.
Yeah, these are former friends of mine.
While we were just talking about in Halo and all of that, we have a SOG veteran's daughter who was a Halo in Okinawa on the Halo team and quite renowned in Halo circles, Mr. John Allen. Who was your Halo instructor when you were going through?
We had many. Of course. There's a few very famous ones at the time. My old age, I can't at the moment remember exactly who. But since then, I've kept in touch with very many Halo instructors, to include my former brother-in-law, Eddie Harrington, is in fact was a Halo instructor, and we still keep in touch. He's my brother from another mother, and a skydiver, a Golden Knight, Special Forces medic. So forgive me, I can't remember the names right now of all the instructors at the time, but I can see them as plain as day. But maybe later on I'll have a epiphany and I'll be able to remember their names.
That's fine, sir. I like you said, I mean, the names and people you've come across in your lifetime. I mean, putting you on the spot like that is tough. I did. I think you, and just because you mentioned him, I think you had a photo with your brother or the man you just mentioned. Is he in this
No,
photo?
no, no.
Oh, okay.
Oh yeah, the one of us, two of us jumping out at 20,000 feet from the U-21 aircraft. I sent that to you
Yeah.
late
Hmm.
or earlier.
Hmm.
The first guy going out, that's Eddie, and I'm following out right behind him. That's when we were test jumpers at the Airborne Communications and Electronics Board at Fort Bragg.
See, I mean, this is stuff that, and I believe I have no idea about what's going on, but intrigued.
Welcome to the club.
Please, no, that's Halo. Hang on, I had that great shot
Yeah,
of y'all.
it's a olive drab. Oh, it's black and white photo.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah, there you go.
Great photograph.
Yeah, there's a funny story. Okay, the guy that's just exited, that's my brother-in-law, and we're jumping with rucksacks and oxygen because we're at 20,000 feet, and it's a simulated combat jump. The rucksack is attached to the rear underneath. That's an old type of parachute system. The main parachute was on the back. The reserve parachute was on the front. So any equipment was attached under the main parachute on the back. And you didn't land with your rucksack directly because you could get injured. So there was a 15-foot nylon lowering line that was stowed. And just before you landed, you released your rucksack and it hung below you. Well, when he jumped out, his lowering line came loose. So he's in free fall with a loop of nylon line above his body as he's falling face to earth. The problem with that is when he pulls his ripcord, there's a spring-loaded pilot chute that pops out that creates drag, pulls the parachute out, and deploys. The chances of that spring-loaded pilot chute getting entangled with the lowering line was 50-50. And I was concerned like crazy because I jumped out after him, but we were separated, of course, by altitude, that would entangle and he would have a serious problem, which could have been catastrophic. Luckily, it didn't happen. I'd also like to point out, you see that white box behind him on the lower part of the door. That's a 16 millimeter camera, electrically operated, that's being used to record the jump because we are doing test jumps to test the feasibility of that aircraft. It's a U.S. Army U-21 Ute, which is an Indian tribe. As you know, the Army uses Indian tribes to name a lot of their aircraft. So we were testing that for the feasibility of using as a jump aircraft, not only military free fall, but also static line.
Wow. Uh, Two questions. Well, there's actually going to be multiple from that. One, did he have issues with tanglement in his deployment?
No, not at all.
Oh,
Luckily, not at all.
thank the Lord. Wow. Two, did the camera get all of this on camera, his jump and him?
Yes, but I never saw the footage. It's funny you should mention that because there's a lot of footage. Oh, I take that back. There is, in fact, some footage that I have seen, and I may have a copy somewhere where it shows other test jumpers jumping out wearing yellow jumpsuits because a lot of our test jumpers wore yellow jumpsuits. Shows us exiting, but this particular jump, no.
Wow. And what was the in of course your opinion? It's going to be a group effort here, but based on your opinion, what did you think of jumping from this aircraft?
It was fine. In skydiving, we jump a lot of aircraft that are similar,
Mhm.
the Twin Otter. So it was a fine aircraft. It could climb to 20,000 feet. there wasn't a lot of room inside. If you notice that other picture that you showed that shows 6 of us or so, it was pretty cramped. But for a special operations small team, it would be just fine.
That's did y'all jump out of OV-10s as well? We've seen a lot of the Okinawa guys jumping from OV-10s.
Yes, but as a skydiver, as a member of the Fort Benning Silver Wings demonstration parachute team, we would jump often, do demos for the Airborne Department new trainees, and an OV-10, Marine OV-10 was in the neighborhood, if you will, and said, well, we'd like to jump out of it. So a few of my military skydiver team members got to jump out of it. And I'm sorry I didn't have that photo, but I have a photo I took wearing a helmet camera exiting out, and one of my jumpers is just exited out the back of the OV-10. So offline, I'll send you that photo, and you can enjoy that because it's a nice picture.
That I bet that is a really, really cool shot. And then you with the helmet cam, I bet that's a heck of a video to see. That's really cool.
Well, what's funny now, I told you I'm a member of the Airborne Phantom Airborne Brigade, which is an existing wonderful organization of retired military paratroopers that wanted to keep the experience alive, keep the brotherhood and sisterhood alive. And we jump once a month. We make both water jumps for the real old farts like me that would have a high risk of injury landing on land. So we offer water jumps so that they can jump with much less risk of injury. So we make at least 12 jumps a year. So we get to participate in that organization. And we even have one jumper who's 93.
Get out of town.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, and we have disabled jumpers, paraplegic and triplegic jumpers that make the water jumps because, well, they all wear life vests. Plus, we have volunteer boat people that are right there as soon as they land to pick them right up and make sure they're safe. So even disabled jumpers can jump. We have one jumper who is a canine military guy. He has a German Shepherd. He's lost both legs, but he jumps with his German Shepherd attached to him. Static line jumps. These aren't free fall. These are military static line jumps where the static line automatically opens the parachute when you fall out. And just before he lands, he releases the German Shepherd, which lands in the water, and then they're picked up by the boat.
I gotta say, I bet that is the coolest day or week or however long that event is. That has got to be the coolest thing ever.
Well, what makes it cooler, especially for us paratroopers, is the primary aircraft we use these days is a C-47, which is the military version of a DC-3 twin engine aircraft that was used by the Army back in the day as a cargo aircraft, but also a airborne paratrooper aircraft. And the airplane we use, called the Tycho Bell, is the same airplane flying today that dropped paratroopers behind enemy lines in Normandy early morning on D-Day. And we're still able to jump that heroic aircraft and relive, if you will, except for all the German anti-aircraft fire, what it was like. And it is just beyond belief what it's like to be able to experience that 81 years later.
That's goosebump material right there. That is,
believe me, it is.
That is amazing. My gosh. You're doing some fantastic work with your post-military life, sir. That is just fantastic.
I've been very lucky, believe me, very lucky.
We had a few more questions before we get going through. And guys, if I've missed it, I'm going to go back through because y'all have been good about talking and sharing. It was a good one about parachute. Okay, Mr. Phil was curious. So, what year did they change the setup for jumping with the rucks from the back to the front? What year did they change the setup for jumping with rucks? Oh, he put it twice.
A good question. I was going to mention that when I talked about the rucksack. Um, when I left the Army, I joined the Pioneer Parachute Company, and my primary job was to help them develop a military freefall system for sale around the world. And the name given was High Altitude Parachute Penetration System, because a new technique was developed with the onset of the flying wing called a square, although it's really a rectangular canopy, which skydivers all use today. And it obviously became the military standard because the high gliding ratio, lift to drag, it's called, for every foot down, you go so many feet laterally, enabled, rather than the early days, my days were halo, high altitude, low opening, because you had round parachutes, basic round parachutes, and a little bit more modernized round parachutes, but still round. And your method of infiltrating behind enemy lines was to fly over enemy territory at high altitudes, so high that the enemy couldn't, quote unquote, hear you, jump out as a team, fall together as a team, open together at low altitude as a team, land as a team, take off your parachutes, bearing whatever, and go perform your mission. Well, with the onset of sophisticated radar and high altitude anti-aircraft systems, that became risky business because you're over enemy territory and can easily be compromised and shot down. The high glide parachute resulted in a new technique called HAHO, high altitude, high opening. You no longer had to get close to the target. You could be miles and miles and miles away, because if you opened at high altitude, up 40,000 feet and above, you exit the aircraft with your team, you open right away. Of course, you've got oxygen, you've got cold weather clothing, you've got GPS, you've got compasses, you've got target locating systems. All this enable you to fly as a team at night wearing night vision goggles, so you can fly actually adjacent to the enemy country on the friendly border. If you're high enough, you can actually glide across enemy territory, the border, where the radar's not going to pick you up because you don't have enough metal, you don't have enough signature. You're not going to be seen or heard. You do it at night. You land some distance away, but close enough to the enemy target that you can land. You can then do your mission. And that HAHO has been used, I believe, in Afghanistan and other areas as well. So to answer Phil's question, who's one of my fellow Phantom Airborne Jumper guys, that was in 1980 when I joined Pioneer Parachute Company. And by that time, and even before, the parachute system where you had a front-mounted reserve had changed to where you had the both main and reserve parachute on the back. And the advantage of that is, if you have the parachute reserve on the back, if you have to use your reserve parachute, you jettison your main parachute because you don't want it entangling if it has a malfunction with your reserve parachute. You could easily disconnect it, go back into free fall, and open your reserve. If your reserve is on your back, it's still attached to you with risers. You're still standing up, and you can still, it's a square parachute, just like the main is. You still have all the advantages of a main parachute. You can still have a nice soft landing. You still have ultimate control. You can avoid obstacles. You can do a nice flare soft landing. But because everything, if you had a reserve on the front, you're coming down at an awkward angle, and your chance of being injured is a lot greater. Plus, it's a round parachute, and it's a small round parachute at the time. so you don't have the same rate of descent as you would with a nice big square parachute, which fits on the back. And because you don't have a front-mounted reserve, you can put your equipment on the front because you've got nothing there but attachment hardware that you can hook all your gear on the front. So, Phil, I hope that answers your question. When that was probably the late 70s, because by 1980, everything was a back-mounted main and reserve, and you had a clean front to attach equipment. But the exact year the military started doing it, I can't answer that question because I wasn't in the military at the time.
Wow, that was amazing history. I mean, that's the kind of stuff, like I told you offline, we've not heard, and probably unless we get to talk to another Halo man down the line, we won't.
I hope you do.
I on the lookout anytime I come across a man like you that's Halo qualified or has skydived in any capacity. During this was interesting. Red was curious, and I'm not sure if he means throughout your whole career. I'm sure in the military they had special people, or I know they did, but he's curious about who's packing chutes all along this time frame here.
When I was in Halo, we had an old, if you will, the dinosaur back-mounted parachute system that's very like the bailout system that the crew used back then. But you had a steerable version of the standard airborne T-10 parachute, 35 feet in diameter, but it was modified with certain areas cut out in the back, so that when air was trapped in it as you descended, air would escape out the back and give you some forward glide. But to answer this gentleman's question, it was packed both main and reserve by licensed parachute riggers. But nowadays, with the modern free fall parachute system, I understand that the main parachute is packed by the jumper, whereas I believe the reserve parachute is considered an emergency parachute, and I believe that all emergency parachutes must be packed by a licensed parachute rigger.
Wow. Okay. And there is there just a regular riggers course, or is there a riggers course for Halo and Hey-Ho situations, or is parachute packing in the military?
Not sure what you mean, but when you go to military, it's not called Halo anymore, it's military freefall. I believe when you go to military freefall school, part of your training is how to pack your main parachute.
Okay.
And it probably goes to a rigger shed, or your team, if you have a military freefall headquarters or whatever, there are riggers there that probably are qualified to pack your reserve parachute.
Wow. And since I'm not going to disrupt the flow of it, since we're talking jumps here, Mr. Phil was curious, did you have a favorite jump story that you're willing to share? Maybe a close call, a fun one, or just American badassery in action?
Well, the closest I came to dying in my life, and I don't even know if my daughter knows this, and this is not a military, this is a skydiving jump. My local drop zone is in DeLand, Florida. And many years ago, I was making a fun jump with a good friend of mine, RIP Jim Mowry, just the two of us, and the aircraft was called a Skyvan. A Skyvan is an aircraft made in Belfast, Ireland, and you don't jump out the door, you jump off the ramp. It has a tailgate that drops down. And all my military experience jumping out of aircraft with tailgates, C-130s, C-141 jets, which is an amazing experience to jump out of that. I decided I wanted to do a back loop off this aircraft. There you go. Because in the military, I used to always Hollywood, if you will, and do back loops off the ramp.
Holy crap.
Just to Hollywood the jumpers or the students that are still aboard. So I decided I'm going to do a back loop off this because I'd never done it before. So my buddy, he goes out, I go right behind him, and I do a back loop. So the next thing you know, I'm in free fall and I'm stunned. I'm absolutely, and it's not painful stunned. I'm euphoric. Wow. I'm high. I mean, and I'm falling towards the ground at 120 miles an hour, and I can't really use my arms and legs. And my goggles had you always jump. I always jump with goggles because the air at 120 miles an hour. My goggles had come off, so I'm squinting, and I'm struggling. And this was at 13,500 feet, which is about 60 seconds of free fall before you're supposed to open your parachute. So I'm euphoric, but I'm thinking I'm not tumbling. I'm sort of still face to earth, but I can't. I have to reach behind me to reach my pilot chute and throw it out to open my parachute to save my life. But I'm not really able to do that. And I'm thinking, you know what? I'm falling towards the ground at 120 miles an hour. And this is not good because I can't do anything about it. Well, luckily, after about, say, 20 seconds, I'm getting the feelings back in my fingers. And I know that I can do it. And I safely open my parachute and land. Everything's fine. What had happened was, back then, we wore what are called frap hats. It's a leather hat with a little bit of ribbing to give you some protection. When I did the back loop, this is a much smaller aircraft with a much smaller ramp. When I did the back loop, the back of my head hit the edge of the ramp and stunned me, as opposed to breaking my neck. So that stunning was severe enough for me to go euphoric and not be able to use my arms and legs for a while. What was really something is nowadays everybody, and I mean everybody, maybe with few exceptions, wears a device called an automatic activation device. Even the military free fallers use one. It's an electronic device that senses two things. It senses your rate of descent and it senses your altitude. Number one, if your rate of descent is too high at number two, the altitude you're at, it automatically opens your reserve parachute. They cost $1,200. Back then, I didn't feel I needed it because I had 3,000 skydives. I'm experienced. I didn't need that. So if I had been unconscious or unable to use my reserve parachute, I would not be here today. What do you think I bought as soon as I landed?
A device.
I bought an automatic activation device, which of course I only jump with today. True story.
Wow.
That's the closest I've ever come to dying.
Have you done any more of your back rolls or continued?
I've not been in an aircraft now to do them because I haven't been in a sky van, and I'm not going to do one in a sky event. But if I'm ever fortunate enough to jump a C-130, I do one in a heartbeat because it's a lot of fun.
Wow. One of our viewers has sent in some of his parachute jumps. I'm going to pull up here. He was with Second Force Recon. He actually was a teammate of a prior guest we had on, and he'd like me to show off what they were jumping and using.
Yeah, that looks like a typical, I'm going to say, an MC-1-1 or MC-4 military parachute system. If I'm seeing the colors correctly, that color was determined to be, after black and after olive drab, to be the least noticeable parachute in the air in daylight, and I think even at night. So I think it's called standoff blue. I could be wrong, but that in fact is a representative of I think it's like 370 square foot canopy, which is very large, but it's very large for a couple of reasons. Number one, to give you maximum capability of covering a lot of ground because it creates a lot of lift. And most importantly, it gives you the ability to jump a lot of equipment and still land safely.
Dang.
And for safety reasons, your main and your reserve parachute are not only safety reasons, for operational reasons, the reserve parachute is the same size as your main. So if you need to use your reserve parachute, you still can operate with your team because you've got the same size canopy and you still have the same capabilities to fly and to land.
Wow. And
Now that is typical of the MC-1-1 parachute we used back in my dinosaur days. It's a modified T10 35-foot round parachute, nothing fancy about it. And you see all those holes in the back. As I said, that creates forward glide. And you can turn it, which is good. Number one, by being able to turn it, you can avoid other jumpers in the air to avoid entanglements. You can avoid obstacles on the ground. And most importantly, you can turn it and face directly into the wind, which gives you a softer landing, because if the canopy has a forward speed of, say, 8 miles an hour, and you're facing into an 8-mile-an-hour wind, you come straight down, which is a good way to land. If you screw up or something necessitates you running with the wind, the 8-mile-an-hour forward speed of your canopy plus the 8-mile-an-hour speed of your wind means you hit the ground at 16 miles per hour, which is not good. So the advantage of a steerable canopy was very good to have. Also, if you'll notice, you see the skirt of the canopy, or the area below the bottom edge of the canopy, you can notice some sort of a hazy looking thing. That's called an anti-inversion net. That improvement came about for the T10 family of canopies because without it, it was not uncommon for the parachute to deploy, and as air is filling up under the skirt, a portion of the skirt of the canopy, rather than deploying outward, would deploy inward, and the air would cause it to deploy all the way to the other side of the parachute, forming its own little canopy. And you would have a distorted canopy called a Mae West for obvious reasons, because you had two different little canopies, which of course ruins your rate of descent. It makes it more chance that you're going to land harder. So to prevent that, some genius said, well, I think the Brits, they put an 18-inch net all around the bottom surface of the parachute, and they called it an anti-inversion net. Should, during deployment, part of your skirt from the opposite side inflate and want to go to the other side, the anti-inversion net stops it, and it comes back to where it's supposed to, and you have a nice opening.
Dang, I mean, that's crazy. The so many the differences of the quick innovations that came up with military jumping and
Would
everything.
you mind putting that up again?
Oh no, not at all. Hang on one second here.
For my jumping friends, I'd like my newer jumping friends, I'd like to share this little tidbit with them.
Did you want the last one or the first?
The last one.
Last one.
Okay, so that's an MC-1-1. My group, the Phantom Airborne Brigade, jumps a canopy called the SF-10A. SF, as you would expect, stands for Special Forces, because it gives Special Operations Forces increased capability. And how it gives them increased capability, it looks basically the same. You have holes cut in the back, although they're a little bit different. But you have the anti-inversion net. But if you'll notice this canopy, the old dinosaur canopy that I jumped in my day, those right there above the jumper, you see those 4 nylon webbing called risers. And those risers are what the suspension lines of the canopy attach to, then go up to the canopy. In my day, when I said you could steer this canopy, the way you steered the canopy was a nightmare compared to the way it is now. Those risers back then, each set of risers on the left side and the right side was a single piece of nylon rather than 4 distinct pieces of nylon. And the single piece of nylon ran through your canopy release assembly and was locked in place so it would stay equal with a fork, a locking fork. And the locking fork was retained with a piece of nylon. And when you opened, you had the locking fork to make sure that the canopy opened equally, that the risers didn't slip. So to steer your canopy, what you had to do was, first of all, after you open, check your canopy, making sure it's good. You undid the locking forks, and in the area where your canopy release assemblies were was yellow webbing that showed you that your riser was equal. So if I wanted to turn to the right, I'd reach up, take my risers. If I wanted to turn to the right, I'd do this to slide my risers, pulling on the rear riser and taking up the slack with the front. That would distort the right rear of the parachute, cause it to turn to the right. And when I got to where I wanted to be facing, I would then have to re-equalize the spacing of the riser. And I was guided by the yellow hints here to where I'm back now to where I can fly straight. Modern parachutes, like the ones we use, the SF-10A, rather than have that antiquated system, which obviously is not the optimum, has steering lines that come down from turn slots on the rear of each side of the canopy. They're little like slits, if you will. Attached to those slits are lines of nylon that run all the way down, and at the end are wooden toggles or nylon loops that are available for the jumper to reach up on his riser. They're retained on his riser. So now if I want to turn right, I just pull down on the toggle, boom, I turn right. When I'm through, I lift up, I'm flying straight again. So that was, again, the old dinosaur system that we used back in the day that modern jumpers find hard to believe, but that's how it was.
That is quite interesting. Especially for me, I literally, when I'm hearing guys talk about jumping, I don't know anything they're talking about. I know for reference the T10 that's being talked about and all that, but that's absolutely outstanding. And I'm wondering here, we've got another parachute question. I guess since we're on it, we'll hit these. And then did you want to go to Vietnam, or did we want to continue since we're in the parachute?
It's up to you. I'm more than happy to go where you want.
Okay. Well, Phil was curious, what's the most important significant change, upgrade, or improvement to the equipment over the years for airborne operations?
If you mean a static line operations, when I look at today's equipment we use at the Phantom Airborne Brigade, the one that stands out the most to me, and again, there is an even more modern system that people jump now called the T11, but I believe the reserve, even though it's configured differently, is the same. But thinking of what we do with Phantom Airborne Brigade with the improved T10 reserve, front-mounted reserve, back in the day, the T10 reserve is the same size, a 24-foot reserve, but when you deployed it, if you had a total malfunction, you just pulled a ripcord, which by the way was located on the right side of the reserve, so you pulled it sideways with your right hand. And when you pulled a reserve, it had a pilot chute. And the purpose of a pilot chute is to catch air, to create drag, to deploy your reserve parachute. Well, the pilot chute was a weird beast. It looked like a little umbrella, if you will, in that it had 4 spring-loaded legs, and it spring-loaded. So when it was packed, it was folded together and then put in the top of the reserve container on top of the reserve parachute. So if you had a total malfunction, you just pulled it and it popped out and did its job. But if you had a partial malfunction, if you did that, it would could just fall down at your feet because you don't have enough airspeed. So what you had to do is you would put your hand over the top so it wouldn't pop out, open your reserve by pulling the handle, get rid of it, drop it. And if you need to determine your direction of spin, because when you have a malfunction, often it's spinning because the canopy is distorted, creating spin. You had to determine if you were going to the right or to the left, because you'd have to reach in with your hand. I'm not making this up. You'd have to reach in behind the canopy where the suspension lines are, and then determine your direction of spin or turn. Pick the whole thing up in your hand, including that pilot chute, and you would throw it in the direction of the spin, because if you're spinning to the right and you threw it out this way, it would open up here and you'd be entangled around your own reserve parachute. The reserve parachute we jump today is called the T10R, or the MIRPS, Modified Improved Reserve Parachute System. You have the same parachute canopy, but the difference is, instead of a right-hand ripcord, imagine if you're a jumper in the day and you break your right hand and you need to use your reserve, what are you going to do? You've got an awkward thing. Well, lo and behold, the geniuses that design airborne equipment, and I think it came from the skydiving days, actually, when we still had square reserve, front-mounted reserves. You now have a center pull reserve, as you see back behind me.
Okay.
Well, the advantage of that is awesome because you can use either hand. That's number one. Number two, that reserve, which in fact is what we jump, rather than have that spring-loaded umbrella pilot chute that you had to hand deploy under some conditions, it borrows a innovation of the British, I believe. Behind that red panel and that ripcord is a pilot chute that has no springs in it. It's just a little parachute, and the little parachute is attached to the top of the reserve with a length of nylon webbing called a bridle. And all you have to do, regardless of if you're under canopy or if you have a total malfunction, all you have to do is pull that handle, and behind that flap you see, on top of the reserve parachute, is a spring that's compressed, and it's encased in nylon. And on top of that is the top, let's say, top 1/8 of the reserve parachute and the pilot chute. So when you pull that ripcord, the spring pushes the top of the parachute, the bridle, and the free floating pilot chute way out into the airstream, and you get really fast, really quick opening. That's what I call a really modern improvement for safety, reliability, using the type of equipment we still use today. If that answers your question, what I consider. And of course, for military freefall, having rear-mounted equipment, square parachutes, and the like.
Wow. I had a question because this was Mr. Frank Norberry and a few other guys from
my hero,
the very original, and Cliff Newman. He taught Cliff how to him and Ben Dennis. But this is Mr. Frank, and I'm forgetting. That's Mr. Rudy somebody, and God, I can't believe I'm forgetting his name. But they're training the Greeks here. Is this the same unit that you've got behind you on that mannequin?
When you say the same unit, not sure.
Like the front piece right here, is that the same style that you have on your
equipment? Yeah, that's exactly it. And even in skydiving days, you notice that there's some other improvements. You notice on the reserve parachute, you see those objects. Those are aircraft altimeters, so you determine your altitude back then. You also, some had a stopwatch to determine the time in free fall. So when you opened your reserve parachute with that, there's a good chance when the parachute opened that metal plate would hit you in the face.
Oh.
Well, nowadays, altimeters have been made significantly smaller. Now you can wear them on your wrist. They have digital altimeters now rather than the analog with the altimeter with the needle that goes up and down. So you just read out what your altitude is, and you don't use a stopwatch anymore. But that's the kind of equipment that we had. Yes.
I was talking to a buddy that is and I don't think anybody can put it together, that had just recently gotten out of MARSOC after 15 years of service or whatnot. And he said that now, not everyone, but he said as he was leaving, they were beginning to try and test. And this guy was on Joe Rogan's podcast here recently, the new helmets that have the full face, night vision and all of that. Not only for them to be able to look through walls and all that cool stuff, but if they are jumping at night now, he said that they have built-in altimeters in their night vision field of vision as well.
I'm not personally familiar with those, but I've read and heard about them, and I'm not the least bit surprised. And if I may, Frank Norbury,
absolutely,
I have the honor and privilege of knowing Frank. When I was stationed at Fort Benning, he was on the Fort Benning parachute team and skydiving parachute team, and his son. And it was an honor knowing him. He's a super good friend of mine and love him dearly.
That's amazing.
He was also, so I don't forget, he was also instrumental in training the Special Forces guys during the Vietnam War who made the first halo jumps into North Vietnam and probably other adjacent areas back then. So he's very instrumental in the history of military freefall parachuting.
And there's I'm ashamed I don't have it up, but there's some great photos, and I've got them hidden away. And of course, since we're talking about them, I don't have time to bring them up. But Mr. Ben Dennis and Mr. Frank are right there, last minute going over, checking with Melvin Hill, Mr. Cliff Newman, and Sammy, making sure everything's good to go. And literally everybody I've spoken to about both Ben Dennis and Mr. Norbury said the exact same thing that you said. One of the greatest men they've ever known, and
Absolutely.
Probably the best Halo teacher that's walked the face of the earth, and that probably
Absolutely.
ever.
Absolutely.
Wow, you cross shoulders with a lot of big guys. And then I apologize for skipping this since we're talking SOG men. Mr. Frank, as you mentioned, was very instrumental with all of the SOG men jumping. Did you happen to come across any of the SOG men yourself? Jesse Campbell, he was trained by Frank as well early. Does that name ring a bell, Jesse Campbell?
No, I'm much better at my age at people's faces. Now, incidentally, when I was stationed up at Quang Tri in Vietnam, we had a CCN launch site there.
Oh, yes, sir.
And I didn't know, one of my platoon leaders, when I was a company commander, when I left and came back to the States, he, because he didn't have enough time in country, my unit actually stood down. The 1st and the 5th Met came back, but he stayed in Vietnam, and he was Special Forces qualified, and he went over to CCN. But as far as any SOG people per se, when I was at Fort Bragg, the distinction, I can assume these guys, but nobody really said, by the way, I'm SOG.
Oh, yeah.
And, but I'll
send you a few pictures offline.
Yeah, I know about Frank's experience.
There's some I'm sure some of these faces will pop out to you as much as you were jumping and the stuff you were doing.
Names like Trent Nella come to mind.
Mr. John, he just passed away.
Famous people. And again, there's a few others that I know well, but old age, at the moment I just can't remember them, but if the name pops up, I'll certainly remember them. I went to the reunion of the first group, first team to jump into North Vietnam, Halo. And that was a wonderful experience at Fayetteville some years ago. Trent Nella, there he is. Yep. Sugar, doesn't ring a bell. I'm sorry.
We've interviewed him on here, and he's still with us. Unfortunately, Mr. John passed away in January or December, sadly.
Yes.
But He was
Yes.
big on Okinawa and on the Halo team, and
Yes.
just a wonderful guy. As a matter of fact, the shirt I'm wearing today was given to me before he passed away. He
Wow.
gifted
Yeah.
that to
I
me.
had the honor of and privilege of knowing him too. Yes.
Just a wonderful, wonderful, sweet man. And all of you guys are, you think of Captain America or whatever, but so unassuming, just so unassuming of a sweet guy.
The quiet professionals.
There you go. He's one of those. He lived up to the name. We've labeled the team, and you corrected me offline about the green light. We've still got the SADM. I figured we're at an hour and 10 now. I'm not gonna hold you long. If we have to go back for Vietnam and do a mini episode, we could. We'll see. I'll keep you abreast of time and see how long you've got.
As long as you want to go, I'm more than willing. As long as the audience doesn't go to sleep.
No, we're glued in here. I thought, since we're not I don't want to disrupt the flow of things and saying, all right, let's stop this and go to Vietnam and then we'll come back. Why don't we continue on speaking, even though this will mess our timeline up, of you getting back to Vietnam, or back from Vietnam, shall we say, not necessarily in the groups yet, but when you start working in the SADM testing program, and when you start beginning that process.
Okay, so I come back to the 5th Special Forces Group. I'm assigned to a Halo team. I go to Halo School, Halo Jump Master School. I'm with my team. We train, we make proficiency jumps and all that. Well, not related to that, my battalion must have had a need to come up with a SADM qualified group or team, if you will. Mm-hmm. So not my Halo team, but I remember being tasked to be trained in SADM. So of course, that's why I'm in Special Forces. You don't often get a chance to learn how to set up and employ atomic munitions. So this was like a dream come true. So we got trained in one of those barracks buildings, if you will. I don't remember it being it was secure, but it wasn't like locked behind a concertina and all that. It could be wrong. I don't remember that. But we would train, learn how to employ it. It was an inert device. Of course, we didn't use a real one, but other than the fact that it wasn't real, it was exactly like the original. We trained to use it. And once that was done, then we were given an exam. And that exam was really critical, because if we failed the exam, it looked poorly on the battalion. And there was a lot of pressure, as I remember, to really do well. And we passed the exam. And I was really happy with that. But that was my last dealing with SADM. I never really dealt with it anymore. But it was on my credentials if necessary. So after I got out of Special Forces, I went to the Airborne Test Board, which it was then called the Airborne Communications and Electronics Board at Fort Bragg, with a facility at Pope Air Force Base. And as the name implies, the purpose is to test equipment, the airborne side being, of course, to test drop procedures, military parachute equipment, tactics, and all that, and equipment to see if it was okay to airdrop it, would it survive airdrop. Well, while I was there, I was a test project officer, which was my primary job, which means I would be given the mission of writing a test plan, conducting a test, and writing a test report of the piece of equipment that I tested, or we tested. But my additional job, of course, was a test parachutist, because of my military freefall experience and airborne experience. And one of my missions is they had come up with a special harness specifically for the SADM to be used in freefall, because the system they were using for standard rucksacks and all that just wasn't up to the job, because SADM is a very big, heavy The device itself was, I think, 59 the device is inside there. You see the handle to pull it out. Is 59 pounds, but the jump container and the foam, and the purpose of the foam is so that you can put it underwater, so say to blow up a dam, and it was buoyant enough that you could position it at the right place under the water to do the most damage under to the dam or bridge. And remember, this was the old days when you had a front-mounted reserve and a rear-mounted main, so you would attach that under your main parachute on your rear. And if you know anything about being in free fall, having up to 70 pounds of equipment behind you under your main parachute makes free fall very, very difficult, at least when you first exit and you haven't really gained speed to get used to the terminal velocity where you have 120 miles an hour of air you can use to stabilize. So it would be highly unlikely that you would start spinning right away and be in a terrible flat spin that you can't get out of unless you're really experienced, or even then. So they came up with a better stabilized harness, and they needed someone to test it. So I do believe, I could be wrong, that I was the first person to test that harness for the SADM. So we jumped an inert SADM, just like we trained on. And my recollection of it was quite clear, because I'm 5'6" at the time, and I weighed 135 pounds, and I've got 76 pounds of equipment hanging from my rear underneath my main parachute, and I'm wondering, what is this going to be like? So I remember waddling to the edge of the ramp of a C-130, falling forward out of it, and sure enough, I'm in a spin. But because of my skydiving experience, I remembered the way to get out of a flat spin is simple. You do what's called a delta. Rather than fall in a face to earth, hands and legs out here, you put your arms back, which causes your head to go way down low, and your center of gravity changes dramatically. So instead of flat spinning, you're now able to be head down, and it reduces your spin. And once you get stable in that position and centered, you can just slowly then bring your arms and up, and then do the corrections that you need, because you're not spinning anymore. You're just fighting the tendency. So that was number one experience. Number two, remember I said that you don't land with the equipment, because you can't do a parachute landing fall with equipment attached to you. You can get injured. So you have a 15-foot lowering line. So you release it a few hundred feet above the ground, and it drops and it hits the end of the lowering line. Well, if you're jumping your normal rucksack that's 30, 40 pounds, well, when I released this, you could feel the tug on it. So that was number two experience that I remember, but the landing was fine. So that's my experience with SADM, other than being trained on a SADM team. I didn't get a chance to be part of any green light team. It would have been fun to do that, but in full disclosure, those are my only really SADM experiences. And I want to explain to those that aren't familiar with SADM, we're not talking about Hiroshima level explosive capability. The purpose of SADM was simple. If you're special operations and you're behind enemy lines and you want to blow up a dam or blow up a bridge, you need a lot of conventional TNT or C4 explosives. How are you going to transport or obtain that behind enemy lines, transport it, stealth, and get to the target, employ it, and not have the enemy find it or see it? Well, the answer is a man-portable nuclear device that has a very low yield.
Tactical.
But that yield represents 0.1 to 0.2 kilotons of explosive comparison to TNT. So you can, in fact, blow up a big bridge or blow up a dam or a similar target with this man-portable device. That was the philosophy of the SADM.
And well, everything's secret, but could you was there when I don't know even know if a call went out, but were guys somewhat eager to be on a green light team? Was it looked at as upon as a good gig, or I mean, it seems
I
pretty crazy.
can't speak for them. I had no concerns when I was training, simply because you have a timer option. And I had read, that there was concern calling it a kamikaze mission, calling it a suicide mission, and all that. But it didn't really bother me because you could set a timer for up to hours, and because it was low yield, and you could, in fact, unless something went wrong, have enough time to go to a safe area to have it detonated. And I just read somewhere online that I think the danger zone was 732 meters, where you could, if it was underground or if it was underwater, you would still be safe. Of course, you had fallout, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But my concern was not there at the time that it was a suicide mission or anything like that.
Wow. And was this a photo of one of the test devices that y'all had?
No, this was when I worked for Pioneer Parachute Company as a test jumper, and we tested parachutes for the parachute company. And the way we would test them, we would pack them in a I can't remember the weight of it's a bomb without fins, and you would pack the parachute in the back of the bomb with a static line, and you would rent this Cessna airplane, and you see that the bomb is on a sled, a skid, if you will. You would go up to altitude, and you would lift up the skid. The bomb would slide out, and it would test the parachute to see if it could survive the opening shock. Because in order for a reserve parachute to be qualified as an emergency parachute, it must withstand a certain degree of opening shock that you would experience, worst case, in free fall. So that's how we tested it. And by the way, if you see on my chest, I'm the dude. And by the way, see that leather helmet I'm wearing? That's called a frap helmet. That's the helmet, that same type of helmet that I hit the back of my head on the ramp of the Skyvan that caused me to have my near-death experience. And if you look on my chest, you can see the next iteration of a digital altimeter that fits on your webbing, and you don't have that horrendous panel of aluminum that can hit you in the face upon opening.
Jeez, that's still crazy that thing had you had to be on your P's and Q's to make sure you didn't catch a piece of aluminum in the mouth as you're trying to halo
That's
in.
how it was.
Woo. Man, and what would you say, as we're going to be shifting a bit back to the military here? What do you think you're in that job capacity as a tester and developing new techniques and such? What do you think your most rewarding project or fun project that you were able to work on and it actually come to fruition?
There's so many, but the number one, beyond any shadow of a doubt, that you showed that promotional thing on the HAP system, high altitude parachute penetration system.
Mm-hmm.
They hired me purposely to help develop that, which we did. We test jumped it, worked just fine, and then we wanted to sell it domestically and overseas. One country that was interested in it was India. Their special operations people was interested in it. So I traveled to India to demonstrate it. And because it's a HAHO, high altitude, high opening system, they wanted me to do a HAHO jump with it to show its capabilities. And so I was able to get the opportunity to jump out of a Russian AN-12 aircraft, which is the Russian version of a C-130, and at 30,000 feet over India.
Jeez.
Well, given that mission, I was not knowledgeable to know if the military, what they were doing, because I don't have secret clearances and all that at the time. So it was, as far as we were concerned, in new territory. So as far as I knew, it had never been done before. I was wrong, but I didn't know that. So we went and did some experimentation to determine the aircraft. By the way, being at high altitude, the aircraft has to fly faster to stay up there because the air is thinner. So we found out that the indicated airspeed of an AN-12 at 30,000 feet is 220 knots. Normal exit altitude for airborne operations at low altitude is 90 to 120 knots. So here we're going 100 knots faster, number one. Number two, when I jump out of the airplane at 30,000 feet going 220 knots, I'm not falling right away. I'm being propelled forward at 220 knots. And then gravity is going to slowly take over until I reach terminal velocity of 120. So what is that sweet spot where my 220 knots transposes to 120 knots, where I can open my parachute to reduce the opening shock? And we did some mathematical calculations, and it was 8 seconds. So when I jumped out of the airplane, I counted to 8 and opened my main parachute, and it was non-noticeable, unlike any other opening I'd ever had at normal altitude. But I didn't know that. As far as I know, the canopy could have exploded, and I had to use my reserve parachute. That's jumping the system, but that's just a low altitude jump at, say, 7,500 feet. But that was my most memorable jump because I did it in Agra, India, where the Taj Mahal is located. So I'm 30,000 feet over India, and there's the Taj Mahal. But on that demonstration jump, I was 19 kilometers, which is, say, about 15 miles away from the drop zone. So I opened at 30,000 feet, oxygen, cold weather equipment, of course, because it's minus 3.6 degrees at each 1,000 foot of altitude. So no matter how hot it is on the ground, it's way cold up at altitude. And landed on the drop zone 19 kilometers from where I jumped out. Nowadays, with the more modern parachute systems, they can cover as much as 40 kilometers or 30 plus miles, which again makes them able to cross borders.
Jeez, that Halo, I didn't realize it, but I thought Halo was game changing. But boy, Halo being able to drift over a border from an existing friendly country, wow.
And I should add too, on the modern Halo, they experimented with Vietnam with the round parachutes, which didn't work quite as well. The modern square parachute military freefall guys, they have illumination panels on the tops of their parachutes, which only can be seen at night, which helps to enable the team members to follow the leader and all fly together and land together, so as a team they can perform their mission. And they're infrared, so they're not even visible, even if by chance they're seen, unless you have night vision or infrared goggles.
Boy, that's a big change from when they had the paint that would the day glow paint
or chem lights.
Yeah. Oh wow, yeah. Gosh, boy, oh my, I can't imagine the old days like that, and y'all writing the book as y'all were going along. That is heavy duty.
I got to add one other thing too. When I worked for Pioneer Parachute Company, I had a group at a company called Baird Corporation in Bedford, Massachusetts. They one of the first to make a military night vision goggles. And it was I can't remember the name of it, but they wanted to see if you could jump with night vision goggles. Again, being away from the military, I wasn't sure if freefall had ever been done with night vision goggles. It had been, but I didn't know that. So I made a test jump with their night vision goggles in Manchester, Ellington, Connecticut, where our skydiving drop zone was. So as far as I knew, I was the first to make a free fall with night vision goggles because I didn't know any better. Of course, I was wrong, but at the time I thought this is another thing that I'm able to do that was sort of cool and unknown. But so that's the night vision goggle side of things.
Wow, that is, man. You were doing some pretty interesting stuff, and I mean, and you keep saying you didn't know. It's like, yeah, I mean, the SOG and all that classified for. I mean, other than what they were doing, you probably were the first guy doing some of this stuff. You know, I mean,
I
outside
don't
of
know.
the special projects.
Military's way ahead, so I give them credit for that because everything's hush hush. You know?
Oh yeah, yeah, and especially back then with that 30-year secrecy clause in Leavenworth hanging over your head. um, okay, I think we might can transition here to Vietnam and flow into special forces as our ending subject. And I'm trying to think of where we even left off. We had gotten to where you had gotten to the repo depot, I believe, and I think you had actually finally learned that you were hooking up with a mechanized unit and we're going to be actually the only infantry unit with the mechanized unit.
Yes, the 1st and the 5th Mech had mechanized artillery, mechanized infantry, M113s, mechanized armor, M48s, probably M60s. Artillery was a self-propelled M109, 155 millimeter, but they had an infantry battalion because even though you're mechanized, you need infantry for things that mechanized can't do, to include infantry providing support to the armor. And I went to that organization because I was an infantry officer and started out as a platoon leader. Then I became a company executive officer, S3 Air, which is a staff officer to control the use of helicopters and for the battalion. And then I became a infantry company commander. And that was my tour in Vietnam for 11 months. And it would have been 12, but we stood down because we were this was in 1971. So the war was winding down, so they're getting rid of units. So I served 11 months in Vietnam.
Wow. Wow. And quite a few hats you were wearing as you just went through. What was that? I don't think we've ever spoken with anybody with a mechanized units, much less being in a mechanized unit and being the only infantry group with it. What was that like for you?
Well, I am glad I was in an infantry unit because that's just in my blood. Be on the ground, hide, stealth, low noise. Being in an M113 armored personnel carrier and having an RPG burn a hole through the side of the vehicle, and I'm just in a box, didn't appeal to me in the slightest, and I didn't want any part of it. I'd rather hide in the bushes, hide in the jungle, dig a foxhole. So I relished being in the infantry, and I'm glad that I got that opportunity because that's what I signed up for.
Wow. Did you coming in as an officer with the experience you've already built up at this point in time? Did you did your men did you mesh well with the men? Did everything click, or did it take a little bit for them to know you?
Yes, because my special forces training and experience, although limited, is definitely a cut above what you get as a draftee going through basic. You get in country and you get a couple of quick little do this, do that. So I had some wealth of experience and knowledge and acumen that I believe was helpful. And I think I may have told you one time, because of my special forces experience with explosives, when we were my company was out, a platoon leader, we found an unexploded 250-pound bomb, which the enemy can get the explosives out of and can use against you as IEDs or booby traps. And I always carried an explosives kit with me in a military in a ammo box, where I had TNT, I had C4, and I had electric and non-electric blasting caps in a separate container in my rucksack for that very purpose. So I was able to set up the proper way to detonate that 250-pound bomb so the enemy couldn't use it. And that was only because of my special forces experience. So to answer your question, yes. But on a negative note, because I was special forces trained and it was in my system, the disappointment, and I'm not blaming anyone because it's just the reality, these were 18, 19-year-old draftees who were forced to be doing this. God love them, and they were wonderful. But they didn't have the experience and appreciation that a seasoned a combat soldier would have. So I spent all my time in the field saying two things: stay spread out, keep your steel pots on. Stay spread out, keep your steel pots on, because the troops would bunch up, and you don't want to bunch up because if you step on a mine or a hand grenade, you're going to have more casualties. And the steel pot, although it's a pain in the ass, gives you protection. So that was the only frustrating thing I remember, is there's a world of difference between a draftee who's not really had a lot of training and being on an A-team with a special forces detachment where you have highly trained NCOs who are gods.
That's perfectly said. Perfectly said. And I can imagine at this point in time in the war, with it being later in the war, that guys are really not wanting. I mean, drafting had been unpopular, but by 70, 71, I can imagine it's really getting unpopular, and you're getting some guys in there that are probably vocal about not wanting to be there.
Well, the biggest problem we had in a company was people trying to get out, going out on an operation, sick call. So you didn't know if they were being legit. You had malingerers, if I may use the word, and I understand people who've never, they're drafted, they could get hurt or killed, but at the same token, you had wonderful, incredible, brave, hard-charging 18, 19-year-olds that humped machine gun ammo, and walked point, and didn't hesitate to be alongside you to go into a combat situation. So the good far outweighed the bad.
Wow, that is good to hear. Some of the guys knowing, hey, I'm here. I need to step up if I'm going to make it home and make the best of it I can, and make sure I don't cause a problem and help everybody else get home.
Sure.
There were two incidents leading a little bit into some of the famous place you ended up, but I had a photo of, I believe, an IED or a deuce and a half that got hit by a landmine. Is there a crazy story behind that, or was that just a freak hit?
Yeah, as an executive officer of a company, you are given various missions. One job I was given was to escort this truck, a resupply truck with a driver carrying supplies, from our base to another base, let's say 10, 20 miles away. So I did so, and I'm sitting in the passenger seat, and we go along the roads, primarily asphalt, but not always. We do the job, no problem, come back. The next day, another lieutenant is given the job. He goes the same road, same mission, hits a mine. I found out about it, and someone said the vehicle is here at the motor pool where they bring in wrecks. So I saw this damage, that the same vehicle I was in, same route. Now, I don't know if we missed the mine or if it was laid the next day. It wasn't IED, it was a mine. But that's what it looked like. Now, the lieutenant was injured, I don't think killed, because as you can see, the engine took most of the damage because it probably hit the passenger side wheel. But there's another lucky me situation where it could have been bad, and just by 24 hours, it didn't happen to me.
Do you do you think were the roads so small that that there's no way that that thing was there, or do you think there's a chance that maybe y'all just were weird and it took a different enough, slight enough path that y'all missed it? Or
I can't say. The roads were actually mostly asphalt. I can't say there were that many dirt roads unless you went through a side road through a village, or
out in the
something like that. I
boonies?
can't remember exactly. So I can't. I don't know where it happened along the route, but primarily asphalt roads. But still, I'm sure the smart Viet Cong, or the Viet Cong in those type of areas, could come up with some way of causing damage. So I can't really answer that question. I don't know.
Wow. And then I believe you had mentioned one of the more significant incidences while you were in Vietnam was what is referred to as, I believe it was called Sparrowhawk Alert, near the Laotian border. I can't remember if you were a rapid reaction force or something to that effect.
Yes, in my infantry battalion, one of the companies or platoons was given a temporary mission which rotated, called a Sparrowhawk. I think a Sparrowhawk was at the platoon level. I don't remember what it was called at the company level, depending on the situation. The purpose was, if something happened, it could be many different things, and they needed a ready reaction force, the Sparrowhawk at the platoon level would be notified that you need to go on this mission to do whatever you needed to do. What had happened, that very close to the Laotian border, which is really not that far from where our organization was stationed, helicopter reconnaissance team had seen NVA in the open and had fired them up with rockets and with 40 millimeter grenades on the Apache on the Huey helicopter, not the Apache, but the Cobra helicopter. Mm. And they wanted someone on the ground to see what was there, do a battle damage assessment. So they notified us. My platoon got on our helicopters, spread out, how many, 6 or 8 per helicopter, and off we went, not knowing what to expect. This was my first ever combat experience, which I always wanted to do. This was it. And while we were en route, they wanted us to hold in rotation until they did some more reconnaissance or whatever. So here we are rotating over Khe Sanh. This is before they opened it up again. So all of our knowledge of remembrance of the Marines getting their ass kicked, we're looking down over the Khe Sanh base, and that was interesting. But the important thing was, I want to be in combat. Damn it, this is what I want to do. I'm an infantry soldier. I want to experience combat. What am I going to be like knowing it's coming? It was scary. I remember being in my helicopter. I'm a platoon leader, and I've got the butterflies in my stomach. I'm thinking, God damn, this is scary shit. So that's a true thing. So anyway, they bring us down to this area where they shot up the NVA. So we unload, we get in a line, and we're on a trail adjacent to this field where the enemy had been shot up, and you see marks where the explosions had taken place. No sign of the enemy. So I go on my own with the troops with me, and I go up to one of the trees, and I see blood stains on the tree where someone had been injured, but no sign of the enemy. Well, while we're there and I'm doing that, about 500 meters, maybe even less, boom, 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 we hear and see helicopters shooting up something else. While we were there, they had spotted a base camp of the NVA in the trees, under the trees, of course. and they had shot them up with rockets and stuff. So guess what, guys, pick up. You're going to go there now. So we get back on helicopters. We go up, and now we go into a little open field adjacent to the tree line where they had been shot up. So I get my guys, and we're going to assault this objective. No one's shooting at us, but we don't know that they're not gonna. So we get, and this is right adjacent to the river that separates Laos from South Vietnam. So we get in a line, and I positioned one of my machine gun teams behind me in case someone comes up from the rear. I did my proper infantry tactics. So, excuse me, my cat just walked by. So as we're walking up, before we walk up, the Cobra helicopter wants to make sure there's nobody there that's going to ambush us. So they asked for permission to shoot 40 millimeter grenades into the tree line to deter anybody from shooting at us. So in order to do that and make sure we don't get shot, and we're talking not even 100 yards away from the tree line, we stop, and I pop not red, I don't remember, it doesn't matter what color it was. I pop smoke to indicate our friendly location, and I tell the Cobra helicopter from the smoke at a compass heading of 240 degrees into the tree line is where the bad guys are. So before I even say anything, the tree line starts erupting with 40 millimeter grenade shells erupting. You know, I'm here about 50, 60 yards away. No shrapnel's going to get us, but still, boom, 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 right there. So they stop. So we continue. And as soon as we enter the tree line, we're still not being shot up or anything like that. The guy next to me, a soldier with an M16, I don't even see it. There's a foxhole right in front of me, but it's dark. It's in the tree line. A NVA, not wearing a helmet. I guess he was stunned from the shot. He's been down in the foxhole, but he hears and he lifts his head up, upper body. And my guy right next to me, I mean, this is 5 feet away, reaches down and shoots him, kills him. So that's a pretty interesting thing, my first combat situation. So we continue into this tree line. My NCO takes some guys, and we go in, and they've got some bunkers that they're building there. But there's no soldiers other than a few dead ones. But there's a whole bunch of rucksacks on a tarp that they had. But all the soldiers that were, if there any were survived, there were no weapons. All the weapons were gone. It may have been an engineer group. It doesn't have to be an infantry group per se. So my smart NCO, rather than us run to the rucksacks and, oh, look what we got, what can we find? He says stop. He had a grappling hook. Sorry, this is my lady friend who's painting my house for me. Go ahead. So he has a grappling hook with him. Smart NCO, the super guy. And he says, let's throw a grappling hook over the rucksacks and pull them from a distance, make sure they're safe, which we did. They weren't booby-trapped or anything. So we go through the rucksacks, and we don't find really a lot of stuff other than food and stuff like that. But we get a few that we want to take back. The rest we didn't have time to destroy, so the enemy couldn't use by fire or anything like that because it got a little bit hotter. I'll tell you about that in a second if you don't mind. So we took the rucksacks that we couldn't take with us and we threw them in the river, thinking that would help nullify the food and sink to the bottom and all that. But while we're doing that, some other helicopters are adjacent. Two get shot down about maybe less than a kilometer from us, and the crew needs saving. So our third mission is to cross the river into Laos and go rescue the downed air crew. So we're thinking, wow, enemy NVA with weapons has shot down the helicopters. They want my platoon, which is not a full 44-man, a 30-man platoon. It's about 20-something or 30 at the most. They want us to go in and rescue them. Well, of course, we're going to go. So we start walking. And as we start to walk, we get a radio, don't go. Other helicopters have come down, picked up the crew, and everybody's safe. And I think they destroyed the helicopters. So we didn't have to do that. Well, by now it's getting dark. And we're wondering, are we going to be rescued or picked up? Or are we going to have to spend the night there knowing there's NVAL around?
Oh.
Luckily, just as it's getting dusk, the helicopters came, took us out, and back we went. And that's my only one live combat story in Vietnam, because for the rest of my tour, luckily, I was never, ever in a combat face-to-face situation. I wanted to be. I volunteered to be. But I guess I was in the right place or wrong place at the right time, depending on your view. And I never got to experience other than that. But that alone was a hell of an experience for my first time.
You ain't kidding. About to be proposed across the fence on your first time in combat. That's
And I think we were the westmost unit at the time to have gone that close to the Laotian border at that period of time. Although not too many months later, an operation called Lam Son 719, when we, rather than just bomb Laos where the enemy was sneaking in, we went ahead and put the 101st Airborne and some of the 1st and the 5th Mech into Laos, along with the South Vietnamese Army, to actually fight them on the ground. So, and I didn't participate in that other than to be up at Hickory, providing security for that Special Forces site, and on Quezon, doing what I had to do with my job as a platoon leader. But I never went into participated into Laos on Lam Son 719. I did on the Vietnam side, but I didn't go into the Laotian side where it was pretty tough because you had the NVA there in force.
Oh, yes, sir. Everything we've heard about the incursion, invasion, whatever term you'd like to use, it sounded like it was a nightmare once you got across the border during Lam Son.
Yeah, I heard it wasn't good.
And you were talking about 40 millimeters. There's a stack of 40 millimeters right there that would come at you.
Yes, those are the 40 millimeter. The gold orgive, or the end, indicates high explosive. If you look at the lower, you see the gray one with a red. That's CS tear gas, a tear gas grenade. If you go up above the hand grenades, you see those canister-looking ones.
I'm gonna have to call you in a little while.
Okay.
I gotta take it with me.
If you see those are either flechette or double-aught buck, which is better suited for close-in-range jungle type of use with a grenade launcher. And they operate right out of the barrel for close-up range. The high explosive ones, because they do have a lot of shrapnel, the ones with the gold tip, the reason that they're different, they have to go 33 feet before they arm, and they're spin armed. In other words, they go out and they spin, and the spinning causes a fuse to activate, which makes them armed at 33 feet. So if you hit something beyond 33 feet, say 34 feet, and they go off, the killing range is something like 5 meters, a radius of 5 meters. You're not worried about blowing yourself up. But the 40 millimeter grenades that they shoot out of a Cobra helicopter are different. They're more powerful, but they're the same diameter. But I think they're longer because they have to be shot at a much greater distance because they're coming up from an airframe.
Wow. I had never seen the loose buckshot rounds before for the M79.
You know what the flechette is?
Yes, sir. The little tiny nails.
Rather than double-aught buck, it's like a tiny arrow. And artillery even had flechette rounds that fired thousands of steel flechettes, little tiny arrows that were devastating to personnel.
Oh yeah, I've Cobra pilot sent me an individual flechette round, a rocket round, and sent me the flechettes from it. And boy, I could not imagine. I mean, they could bush hog the jungle, nail you to a tree just about. I mean,
Now, if you don't mind me saying it, as long as that photo up, I've got, if you don't mind me, the rifle or carbine that you see there was mine. It's called a Car 15, but its official name is an XM177E1 made by Colt. When I arrived, this is an amazing story, but true. Again, my luck. When I arrived in country at the replacement depot, I was there for like 2-3 days. And I'm milling around, going to the PX and doing what, the food and getting lunch and all that. I see a guard, American guard, away from his security post, and he has this, but instead of that stock, it had the standard collapsible stock. And I asked him about it. I said, oh, "Wow, that's cool." And he says, "You want to buy it?" And I said, "You got to be kidding me. How much you want for it?" $40.
wow.
He sold it to me for $40, which it wasn't, you didn't use cash. You had military pay certificates, which was equivalent to US dollars, but you didn't have US dollars. I bought that fully functional, fully automatic XM177E1 for $40 and carried it with me throughout my infantry, most of my infantry experience in Vietnam. But the collapsible stock was not really good and reliable, so I replaced it with a standard M16 stock later on.
Gosh, that is not only you getting it a cool story, but your customization and getting rid of the collapsible stock is absolutely amazing. That is so cool.
And people are wondering what is the purpose of that red and yellow thing. This is really corny, but you're going to have to believe me. As an Old West cowboy and Indian aficionado, I was always impressed with the combat prowess of the Native American warrior, and they carried feathers and similar things on their spears, on their bows, for their bows and arrows. And I for better or for worse, in homage to them, that was sort of my way of honoring them, and that's what that represents. As silly as it might sound, I thought it was good for me at the time. I also want to point out, if you notice the magazine in my carbine, it's a 20-round magazine. Believe it or not, at that stage in Vietnam, we didn't have 30-round magazines. We only had 20-round magazines. Only later in the war did they start issuing 30-round magazines. So there we are in combat with 10 less rounds than we could have had.
Jeez. I thought for sure y'all have gotten a few 30s by this point in time.
There may have been with special forces, special operations, but we didn't have them.
That's terrible. I mean, I know the SF and SOG guys, but I mean, y'all definitely were in the infantry we're needing 30-round mags against the 8Ks. I mean, that's crazy. And of course you got that dangerous Willie Pete right there.
Yeah, Willie Pete grenade. Wonderful device. Oh
yeah. We've heard some few stories of that saving a few guys bacons, both marking targets and just obliterating the NVA in front of them.
Yeah, and starting fires, because we did a lot of bush burning out in the country. We didn't burn villages, but out in the wide open field, not the jungle, but the wide open fields with brush. The enemy could sneak up on you if you're staying overnight, RON, remain overnight, or your patrols. So we would burn the surrounding brush just so it would be clear, so we could be better served to stop being snuck upon. And Willie Pete helped do that. But we use flares as well, or trip flares, to do the same thing, or Zippo lighters.
You had a really neat, I think, a fishing story right here that went along with.
Well, yeah, one of the places my platoon remained overnight. From there, we would launch out night ambush patrols. We were secure. We had guards out, of course. We were in wide open spaces. The NVA wasn't really strong in the area at the time, so we were less concerned about being mortared, being ambushed, or anything like that. And we were adjacent to a small river. And during one of our reconnaissance patrols, I noticed small schools of fish. Well, we're eating sea rations every day, and those are pretty tiring. So I had a brainstorm. I'd seen and heard that you could harvest fish with a hand grenade. So I took one of my hand grenades, threw it in the water where the school of fish were. It went off, and all these small fish surfaced to the top. So we collected them, brought them back, and so, well, let's cook them. How are we going to do it over an open fire? So we got our M16 cleaning rods, which you screw together so they're long enough to clean your barrels. We impaled the fish upon 2 of them, and we roasted them over the fire, and we ate them. So that's just showing how we're going to cook our fish. And there's the type hand grenade. It's an M67 hand grenade, how we harvested our fish. True story.
Doing a little DuPont fishing, as they call it.
Right.
I love that. That's where everybody's worried sometimes, or I shouldn't say everybody, but some of the guys are worried about they're not having enough combat stories to live up to some of the other guys, which I hate vets even bringing that up. But those are the kind of stories we love hearing of y'all. Tired of those dadgum sea rats, and there's some fish right there. Let's get them and eat them, and that's I love that. That's cool. And we're hitting the 2-hour mark. I'm trying to get it through, but I don't want to miss any of your great story. But you're about to end up in a very historic place and predicament here in Vietnam, and especially SOG lore. Could you tell us about how you ended up getting a duty assignment to Hickory Hill, where John Cavallini would inevitably earn his Medal of Honor?
More than happy to. I'm at Khe Sanh. I'm a platoon leader. I didn't go into Lam San across the border. Did various localized, if you will, combat patrols, combat missions. And I got the assignment to go to Hickory to provide security for the installation that on a hilltop, there's 2 hilltops, but on a special hilltop were a small fortress, if you will, a very crude fortress. And the purpose of that fortress, there was a top secret special forces device. The purpose of the device was to intercept enemy radio traffic, and it needed protection because there was none after, and I don't know why, but the special forces group that was up there had left, and they needed us to protect them. So my platoon went up there. Most of the platoon went up to, this is Hilltop 950, and this hilltop overlooks Khe Sanh, an elevation of 952 meters. At the other end of the hill of the mountain is Hilltop 1015, which also needed some kind of security because from that hilltop and the ridge line we could be attacked. So I put a squad up on top 1015, and they were up there just in foxholes, the poor guys, but that's the price you pay. So I spent 2 weeks, maybe 3, up on that on that site for the sole purpose of protecting the device. And that device, if you look at the picture, at the 11 o'clock position, you see the 2 dark square boxes with the white signs. Those are Connex containers, one of which contains the device and the crew to operate it. And the other device, I'm not sure exactly, but they had a generator to run it. And the generator, gas powered or diesel, I don't remember which, was a stealth generator. It did not make a sound you could hear externally, which was an amazing thing.
Crazy.
So my platoon was stationed all around the perimeter in groups of 2 or 3 in the various little hooches, if you will, and they would do their duty in the day, and at nighttime we would post guards, which we would rotate to provide night security in case we were to be attacked at night. Although it wouldn't have been easy because the ridge line is extremely steep, and the only real logical attack would have been along the ridge line. So that was the only really concerning infantry, if you will, attack point. But as we found out later when Caviano was involved, mortars and artillery fire and RPGs was able to wreak havoc on it. And this is what it looked like after the assault. And this assault took place 2 months, I believe, after we left, when we were relieved by a special forces group of not only a few special forces soldiers, including Caviani, but indigenous personnel. They weren't South Vietnamese. They were some tribal, which were very special forces friendly. And they were up there, and they were attacked and wiped out. And Caviani was able to perform his heroic last stand, if you will, and escaped from that horrific place, and was later captured and then repatriated and received the Medal of Honor, which he greatly deserved. But again, my luck, we were up there a couple of months before, and while we were up there, nothing ever happened. Lam Son 719 was going on. We were never shelled. We were never mortared. We were never attacked. Nothing ever happened, but crap was going around all over us, to include Khe Sanh, which we could see. We had a 360-degree vantage point of the whole surrounding country, include we could see Laos, see what was going on with artillery strikes. But we never had anything happen to us. But we could see Khe Sanh getting hit by artillery a couple of times a day. There was also a sapper attack, and sapper is where enemy soldiers sneak in and blow up installations and kill and maim and destroy as much as they can. And we could see the place on fire. But for luck, we were never, ever ourselves while we were there, didn't get a scratch.
God. I thought that really lets you know you're in a secret place when they've got a board already made out to blow up the cryptographic equipment.
Well, yeah. Here's one example. My philosophy when I was in Vietnam was, someday someone's going to ask me, doesn't have to be family, what did you do in the war, Daddy? And I always admired how the World War I, Korean, World War II soldiers, and I thought, I want to be able to do the same. So I made it a point to take a lot of photographs.
Thank God.
And rather than just plain a Kodak, poor quality, I had a 35 millimeter camera. So I strived to take a lot of higher resolution 35 millimeter of things that I could share with my people who asked me, what did I do in the war? And this is a good example. The top secret device that was up top Hickory, in case it was compromised or overrun, it would have to be destroyed. Well, how are you going to destroy a large electronic device? The best way is with the thing you see there in red, which when it is activated, either electronically by, you see the 2 wires on the top, which is an electric blasting cap, or with a conventional fuse, as you see in the middle. If you put that plate, which is, it burns the thermite grenade, a thermite plate. If you put that atop the plate and activate it, it burns at 1200 degrees and it will instantly melt that device. Jeez. Well, to do the same thing in case we came across something that had to be destroyed, let's say a radio, let's say artillery, let's say something valuable to the enemy, we of course couldn't carry the plate, but we carried a thermite hand grenade, which you see there. And I took that picture to show the comparison. So we carried a thermite grenade, which did the same thing at 1200 degrees, but it did it in a much smaller package.
Wow.
But one day, the crew, for whatever reason, of the top secret device had the thermite grenade outside. Maybe they were cleaning, maybe they were reorganizing. They took the thermite plate and put it outside. And I said, wow, can I take a picture of that? And they said yes, because there's nothing top secret about that.
Wow. I'd never even seen the plate. I've heard references of guys that had been on Hickory talking about the self-destruct methods or destruction methods, but that's too cool. I had never seen that before. And there were a lot of secret stuff up there. I mean, the ASA sensors, y'all had something, the mech had their own little sensors going. It was quite the place with what the intel that was being collected up there.
Yeah, and it is what it is, but it was a rat infested shithole.
Oh,
This could be. We were lucky though; we did have underground places to sleep, if you will, with protection from sandbags and stuff like that. And there were mortar installations and machine gun places, claymore mines scattered all around. So we did have protection, but it was a lot of trash that had been thrown over the edge, and there were rats every night. It was a rat shithole. Sorry, my French, but that's what it was. But we were safe up there. So, and we had a wonderful panoramic view of the entire place. So can't complain.
That is a beautiful view. But yeah, those rats, I've heard they were the size of small cats. I mean,
unbelievable. But they weren't just up there. In the regular fire support bases, we had underground bunkers, and the rats were up there with us every night. Big giant rats.
Oh, Lord have mercy. Well, I mean, that's and I'm sure we could devote a whole, but you've sent me some great resource information that I've still got to go through and start looking at.
By the way, if you ever want to do a part 2, 3, or 4, I'd be more than happy to.
I can tell you, we're definitely going to have to, because I've already
little anecdotes that I think are worthwhile to share with you, because it's not me, it's things, little things about Vietnam and fighting, and if I could write a book kind of thing that I think are interesting that I'd love to share.
I absolutely, and in fact, everybody has just mentioned, when I said it earlier, they said he's definitely going to have to come back, because I also have been cutting a little bit out to make sure we'd cover at least some of your special forces, and we're not even going to be able to cover all of that because we're at 2 hours and 15, and I'm not going to hold you longer than 2.5 hours today. That's crazy. We can definitely do a part 2.
It's up to you and the audience. I'm good.
We're by consensus already. They're wanting you back, so I think we can. We'll transition to
just
talking
give
a
my
little
address to send the checks.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. And speaking of books, you might need to actually think about writing a book. And yeah, people are saying you need to come because they're going to end up having questions after rewatching this. So
I'd be honored. I'm open to any questions. I love sharing my experiences because it's educational.
It absolutely is. We need, my generation and below needs to hear and learn.
There you go. What'd you do in the war, Daddy? Yes.
Okay.
I have a Facebook page, Ron Clayton, and I'm more than happy if you want to message me. I have no problem with that.
I was going to wait till you said that. I'll add your Facebook profile in the show notes. So you might be very popular here pretty soon and be getting friend requests and messages.
I don't have any problem with that whatsoever. I love to share. Excellent.
Well, I'll do that. And guys, if y'all want to, you can reach out to Mr. Ron and he'll answer questions in between his appearances. How about, since we're just now hitting 2:15, why don't we at least cover a little bit about an overview of you getting back home and starting the special forces? Or, you know, we're at 2:15. Do you want to save right here since we're at the end of Vietnam and maybe pick up to where we can literally start to where your special forces journey begins?
I'm more than happy to go, but my gut feeling is God love the audience, but I believe it would be tiring even for them. And I'm thinking for their benefit, it might be good to do part two at a different time. They're welcome to pipe in, but I'm fine. I'm having no problem with it. But I still think it'd probably be better because it's streamed for an audience. So I'm thinking it might be better for them to do a part two, and they'll know in advance if they're interested in joining in.
Oh, that everybody has just said absolutely, please do, because like I said, people are going to rewatch it and ask questions. And Daniel, one of the guys that helps me a ton with this, said we're going to need a part 2 and 3.
I'm honored to do it.
Okay, well, since you're on board, I don't like pressuring guys and making it feel like we're putting you on the spot. But since you're open to it and we're at a clean break point, I say, hey, why don't we put a pin in it right here? And when you get free time, either next week or at the beginning of February, let's hit a part 2.
Yeah, it is past my nap time, but I'm good.
Okay, then how about let's close down, and then if you hang on for just a second, me and you will look at the calendar and I'll let people know what we're thinking. So
okay, and I would like to thank the audience for
go
their
ahead and do
attention
yeah.
their kind words. It makes me feel wonderful. Thank you very much.
And they're all, the thank yous are, I literally would be here 5 minutes going through all of them, but they're saying thank you and yes, a part 2. So guys, you did good. We've managed to rope him in and corral him into a part 2. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut right here. And if y'all have questions about Vietnam and what we've covered today, by all means, get your questions ready, because I'm going to have questions as well. But we're going to cover part 2 is going to be his Vietnam, God almighty, his special forces experiences, and then we'll cover some questions. So we'll get back with y'all and let y'all know either next week or the following week, and we'll go from there.
I'd like to say one closing for my airborne buds.
Absolutely.
Airborne.
And I'm glad your daughter and your friends were able to join us. That's absolutely awesome. Okay, guys, if you hang on 1 second, I'm about to shut this down. Guys, we will I'll let y'all know as soon as I get this on the calendar of when we'll be doing part 2. Thank y'all for joining us, and be ready for part 2 and get your questions together. Have a great day, and we'll see y'all later.